they may face when trying to formulate a proposal from a research question or from a curiosity question, like like we discussed the other day. Yes, we have some participants here, so um, we won't waste much time now. I think we can start the presentations. uh, if anybody has any suggestion on which order to take, we can do that. Otherwise, we can go by an alphabetical order. If somebody is ready to present theirs first, we can do that also. So for each presentation, we can set aside around 5 minutes. You can share your screen and present, uh, preferably in the format you know uh, in the template that we had supplied. And if you have anything else, any other format, if you prefer to follow any other format, that's also fine. It's or what we are looking at only, whether the most important parts of this of a proposal are there or not. And we can try to collaboratively come up with ideas on how to improve each one of the presentations. So that's what we can try to do. So if somebody can volunteer to start up front, that would be very fine. Otherwise, we can. Yes, yeah. So Madhyami is ready, so we can start with Madhyami. So I would request Jimson to just take note of whoever is presenting. It's only for recording purpose. It's not that we will be giving certificates to only those who have presented. Nothing like that. Anyway, we will be sharing a feedback form shortly after this session, and once we see the feedbacks, we will start proceedings for the sending the certificates to participants, and those kind of things will happen then. So we can start with Madhyami, please.
Yeah, can I go ahead and share my screen?
Yes, you can.
Okay, thanks. Is this visible?
Yes, it is visible. Yes.
Okay, so I followed your template, and this is the title that I'd given: Effects of Subjective Well-Being and Emotional Intelligence on Stress Amongst Millennials, Role of Personality as a Moderating Variable. So, sir, there are some places where I couldn't fit my data, so I've just kind of not completed, so it may seem a bit incomplete.
Yeah, that's totally fine. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so here essentially I have mentioned the abstract, how many what was my sample size, the age group, how data was going to be collected, and in what format. And then in below you can see a few keywords as mentioned in the sample. So I've mentioned the keywords. Can I move ahead?
Yes. Yeah. In fact, you can consider this as your own presentation.
Oh, okay.
You can just go ahead and finish.
Right.
No issues.
Okay. So this was my title, and I'm going to move to my introduction and background, wherein I have done a little bit of literature review. I have mentioned, I'm going to highlight this as I read it, Gardner H. in 1983, the format that I followed here is APA. This gives a brief background about why I intended to choose this study. For example, I've mentioned that emotional intelligence and subjective well-being go hand in hand. There are two sides of the same coin, and how stress has almost become a daily part of our lives. Moving on, I have mentioned the objectives in bulletin forms to understand the relationship between SWB and stress amongst millennials, and then emotional intelligence and stress. So these were the type of combinations that I came up with using the variables that I had, my IV, DV, and the moderating variable. After my objectives, I have mention my hypothesis. I came up with 6 hypotheses in my study. Each were I wanted to see if they were going to be correlated or not, and hence that H1 and H2 I've mentioned negatively correlated. As per my literature review, it came to my notice that neuroticism does not usually, and in the past hasn't, have any relationship between SWB and emotional intelligence along with stress, and therefore 3, 4, 5, 6 are in the following form. Sorry, I'm rushing a bit because we have 5 minutes and I realized I have about 14 slides to cover up. Need and significance is where I have mentioned why I thought it would be necessary to take up this particular topic or these variables and not something else. So this is again a part of my lit review wherein I realized that almost 65% of the population below 35 in India are considered young population. And I'm planning to conduct this study during COVID or maybe after COVID or when things relax a bit. Now, this is how I had to Google a bit, and of course, Sir had given us inputs last weekend. So following that, I have followed the APA format in trying to do my literature review. And then, of course, Sir, I've mentioned this because I couldn't fit the rest. So I've tried to go from the latest study to the older ones. A question, sir, that I had here is, does literature review need to be organized chronologically?
Yes, this is one of the most popular ways of ordering a literature review. You can also go by theoretical basis or in the format of a
Right.
theoretical framework, but most
Yeah.
people follow a chronological order.
Okay. Okay. So is it safer to say that chronological is most used or most? I mean, is
Yes,
that
it
what is
is. Yes,
expected?
yes, it is. Yes, it is. Because you're trying to you're trying to show us
Mhm.
how the research has shaped how, or the research has evolved over time. So chronological order is apt for that.
Okay. Okay. Moving on, then the next in the sample that you provided was methodology. Design, I've very clearly mentioned that it's a survey research focused on exploratory research. And then my operational definitions is something that I got from the tools I have. So operational definitions have to be mentioned in bulletin forms, is what I've read, and you cannot add your own words there. So again, I couldn't fit this, so this is in 2 different pages for the perceived stressed and neo FFI I have mentioned here. I followed the ocean model rather than following neo FFI because that's what most people know and understand better. Following after this slide is my variables where I've mentioned my independent, my dependent, and my moderating variable. I originally also had a diagram explaining, but I thought that was not needed for this presentation for today. Next is setting and participant and sample. So I've mentioned how I'm going to collect my data. So it was clearly mentioned Google Forms. Then, as Sir mentioned, I have also included the inclusion criteria, what I'm going to be including in my sample, and what I will not be including. So this gave me a fair idea of what kind of people I need to reach out to. These are the methods and tools that I'm going to use. All 4 of these are Google Forms, each with their own different scoring method, which is going to be done on SPSS and Excel. Data analysis, I have mentioned what I aim to carry out is a Pearson's correlation followed by regression analysis. Anticipated results and discussion. So based on my literature review, this is what I came up and understood that the study aims to assess if an individual's personality, depending on ocean model, moderated the relationship between SWP and emotional intelligence on stress. This is how I've mentioned my references following the APA format. So some of them are journals, some of them are books, and some of them are papers. I just blindly followed the APA format here. So here is another question. I didn't understand this entire slide at all.
Okay. Is the presentation over or?
Yeah, that's about it. That's
Oh,
what I came up
okay.
with.
Okay.
This was
Yeah.
actually a part of my master's dissertation, so I found it
Mm-hmm.
easy to comprehend and make sense of what I'd done. But
Yeah. Okay.
implications is something I'm not sure.
Right. Right. Fine. So now, this is you know somewhat well prepared proposal.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Definitely, it would have been helpful because it was you had you were you had some prior acquaintance with the variables and the
Yeah,
tools used here.
yeah,
But so uh, if you go for a PhD interview, there could be some questions asked, especially since in the objectives and in the hypothesis, it's not personality as such that you have described, right?
yeah. No.
uh, yeah. So that could be that could be a talking point in an interview.
Uh-huh.
So some professors would repeatedly ask you,
Right. Yeah. Hello.
instead of taking the whole or uh, okay, so there are your objectives. What were the next slide, the hypothesis? Yes, yes, yes. Yeah. So neuroticism, extraversion. When we single out these,
Mm-hmm.
so maybe we will need to put in some extra paragraphs or extra sentences in the need and significance portion
Yeah.
to convince the readers that there is a specific reason why we have gone for uh, you know uh, gone for dimensions from
Mm-hmm.
within because yeah, I think that's the thing is self-explanatory, right? So another thing is with regard to research design, uh, it's always good to write 2 or 3 sentences while naming the research design. And
Okay.
I saw that the same word design no the so yeah research, the same word was
Oh.
repeated there. So
Mm-hmm.
so when we write the design part, it's always
Mm-hmm.
good to uh, you know name your research design first and write 2 sentences which would support your choice of this specific research design. you know
Okay.
why this is and if there was some other design which would also be appropriate for the study and you have omitted this, that can also be included.
Okay.
This study could also be covered using so and so research design, but
Hmm.
the X design that I have chosen fits
Hmm.
because of so and so factors. So it could make around four sentences in the
Okay.
research design part, and then we can go for the other portions of the proposal.
Hmm.
And it is always good to copy edit the proposal once before submission, because I saw that in some areas there was past tense being used.
Hmm.
The tense of the proposal should throughout it should be in future tense.
Okay.
So so for for the methods, for the results, all these things,
Hmm.
uh, it's the tense should be consistent. So we will definitely be using
Yeah.
future tense.
Okay.
And regarding implications, it is like the results we are trying to portray. What could be what could be what could be the direction of the results, or what could the results tell us. And in the next portion, in the implications part, we will tell how these are going to be helpful in policy making or problem solving or some kind of social action outside of our research. So
Okay.
and up until your results, it's inside your research. And
Hmm.
in the application part, we will tell us how this is going to benefit the world, the
Okay.
outside world. Yeah.
Okay.
So what are the social implications or what are the social applications? Who are going to
Yeah.
benefit when I publish this research? Whether it's
Hmm.
the government, whether it's NGOs, whether it's whether you will be able to develop something from this.
Hmm.
Like maybe a training module. So that's what we mean by the implications part.
So essentially, what I understand is where in the future is this going to be helpful?
Exactly, exactly.
Oh, got it.
That's about the implications.
Yes.
And uh, if anybody has anything to and we have to remember that this is not a viva say so it's not about being questioning, but if anybody has something to add or anything, we can have that,
Yeah.
or else we will go to the next presenter.
Yes.
If somebody has to add something, yeah, even the chat box can also be used. Okay, if there is nothing to be added, well done, Madhyami. It was
Thank you, sir.
somewhat well structured proposal,
Yeah.
and in a physical environment, we would have been better able to go
Yeah.
through every word,
Yes, sir.
and maybe make it better, even better. But
Yeah.
very well done. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. So when I my screen by what I see, I think Akash is if somebody is
Can,
volunteering to present,
yeah,
that
can I
really,
can I do?
yes, yes, yes,
Okay,
of course. Done, yeah.
perfect. Just a second.
Yeah.
Is it visible? Hello?
Okay, okay. I was speaking with a muted mic. Yes, it is visible.
Oh, okay, perfect. Okay. So, so my topic, which I have chosen, is perceived COVID-19 threat and psychosocial impact on LGBT community. um, there are few things which I have not included as per the template which is given. So it's a basic introduction why I'm doing this research, because the pandemic has been very harsh on people, but especially the minor community. So that was I wanted to explore how things have been with them during this COVID-19, as the health issues have been there, travel has been restricted, and as we all know that this community is the minority ones. So this is the basic thing. And my research problem mainly stated that because of the COVID, everybody is infected, as I mentioned before. So how things have been changed in their community, like what was the level of anxiety and depression, has it increased because of COVID or not, and what are their coping skills and their resilience and their well-being because of the COVID-19. So next, these are few hypotheses which I have made. I have few more, but I could not include the other more. So these are the few. This is my review of literature which I have went through, and in all the review I found all of the studies have been done in the foreign countries. So which majorly showed me that yes, the level of anxiety and depression has increased, and there are problems people, the minority, the LGBT community are facing because of the COVID, which can be social, their social life has been hampered. And my sample size would be around 200 people from the community, and my sampling method would be purposive and snowball. And there are few inclusion and exclusion criteria, which will be that individual will be belonging to 18 to 35 of age, plus their community and a registered member of some NGO. Then the exclusion will be that they will be facing with no mental illness and no neurological problem, and there would be no death in their family due to COVID. So these are the few tools I would be using. One will be the GHQ for the basic, what do we say, basic screening out process. Then it will be Beck anxiety, Beck depression, psychological well-being, perceived coronavirus threat questionnaire, then resilience, Connor Davidson resilience scale, multidimensional scale for perceived social support, then psychological well-being scale. And the research design would be the correlational research, And in the data analysis will be there definitely coded as SPSS through will be finding correlation analysis will be done. And if required, then definitely regression will also be done. It depends on the results. So I have included few limitations because in India, in my review of literature, I found that there was no uh, study done on LGBT community and COVID. So this is the major reason which I have taken this topic for my research. And these are my references in APA format. Yes, I think I'm done.
Oh,
Thank you.
that was really fast. So okay, uh, uh, was the name of the scale perceived COVID coronavirus threat?
Yes. It's a new scale perceived coronavirus threat.
Yeah, right.
It's by Conway.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've come across at least three scales for coronavirus. Anxiety scale was there, COVID-19. Uh, yeah, I think even this was I had also seen this one also, right? Yeah. So uh, uh, can we see the this is the
Sure.
problem? Yeah. See
Just
this.
a second.
Yeah.
Just a second.
Uh,
Which slide do you want to see?
hmm, the one after literature review.
One after it is that's a sample size.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, did you provide an operational definition for
No,
variables?
no, I didn't. I didn't provide.
So since this is a very new variable,
Yeah.
it is always good to include and since you have used more than three or four scales, and yeah, in a practical situation, we would always we should always be mindful about the number of the questions that the total study will have. If it is more than 100 or something, there could be some sampling errors. No, not sampling errors in the data, because people would not be as interested in filling a large questionnaire. So we have to be mindful of that fact. That can be a discussion point in the interview. If you present it somewhere,
Okay.
somebody would definitely be asking about this. How what would be the size of your total scale, because you'll be using all the scales that we have listed here, and along with that we will be asking some other questions, right? Like their gender.
Yeah.
uh,
That's the demographic sheet.
yeah. So there
Yeah.
could be anywhere between five or maybe some up to 10 questions in that also. So
Yeah.
yeah. So when using more than two or three scales, you should be ready with an answer for this. What would be the size of your total tool when you print it, or when you make it into a Google sheet. And when we do physical data collection, it would always be in a physical printed sheet or something. So people would ask that question, what would be the size of your total tool, and will that be comfortable for the population? And we should have an answer ready for that. Then
Okay.
again, regarding sample, it is always good to either use one sampling technique, or if we are using more than one sampling techniques, we can use a specific terminology for that. Something like a multi-stage sampling. And when we say multi-stage sampling, we can say that which will be the specific sampling methods which would be involved in our multi-stage sampling.
Okay.
So because by practice, it's always okay to use more than one sampling method. There is no issue in that. But the practice, again the practice comes to saying a single word. So for that, we can use the term multi-stage sampling, and or even nested sampling. We would be using a nested sampling, in which I will
Can
be
you
using
repeat what was the name of the sampling?
either multi-stage sampling, or you can use the term nested sampling also.
Okay.
I would, yeah, I would prefer the term multi-stage sampling,
Okay.
and inside that we will describe what are the specific sampling methods that will be used. And when you write it up, as a proposal. In such a case, you have to spend 2 or 3 sentences to describe how this will be done. How the snowballing will be done. What are the criteria for purposive sampling? Those things are better to be included there. And yes, since we are dealing with a variable which is not being researched much, it is always good to give operational definition for perceived COVID-19 threat.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, it was a short time, and that's why I could not put the operational
Yeah,
definition.
yeah, no, no. I'm not asking you whether where is the operational definition.
Yeah,
Rather,
I
I'm
get it.
just I'm giving a suggestion. We all know that it's not humanly possible to come up with a very good proposal.
Yeah.
Within this time of a week. That and it is about this presentation and also about Madhyami's presentation.
Yeah.
Uh, Sometimes when writing a report, many people, including myself, would say that creating a literature review is the most difficult part because mostly we follow in almost always or anywhere in India. If you go to any college or university, we have this habit of following a literature review method, which can be called what we used to call as a journalistic method.
Hmm. Okay. I think I lost the voice. Hello.
For during our PhD coursework and all, we should uh, try to frame it as a story in the literature review part. To try to frame the literature review part as a story, which is centered around our main variable, whether we call it a dependent variable or not, our main variable of the study, and build the literature review so that it has a flow. But most of the times when we just go through some studies and we take notes, and when we uh, you know build a literature review, many times it becomes kind of a journalistic report. So that is again, the practice is to write journalistic reports as literature review anywhere, but uh, if you send it to outside journals or to very good reviewers outside, they can raise that issue of the literature review issue.
Okay, so I
And
have a question now.
yeah,
So while presenting the proposal, should the literature review in a paragraph kind of a format or the tabular format?
a tabular format can be used as a summary of our literature review.
Okay, okay.
Again, a tabular format alone would not suffice.
Okay, okay, okay.
So you can use the tabular format just like we use a Titus table. We present the table, but again we describe the table, right?
At the table, yeah. Got it.
But yeah, tabular format is a very good addition to the proposal. It can get you points, brownie points for doing it,
Okay.
because it shows that you have taken time to summarize things, into a format, a specific format. And there's no need to mention the software which we will be using. I think I had spoken that last time. So it's not to say that you should not use the name of a software, but
Hmm.
the actual name of the software is not a criteria which people will be looking at.
Okay.
Rather, it would be the methods, which would be the statistical
Yeah.
methods that we will be using. And uh, you can you cannot you can mention regression analysis or regression model. There's no need to make it conditional. If needed, we can mention that we'll be using uh, regression modeling. That need not be made like whether, if it is needed, that can be avoided.
Okay.
uh, I think, yeah. So that's much. That's what I saw in the proposal. Again, now regarding this one, Madhyami can also reflect, like, when we take this thing, the implications can be more easily made out from the title itself, or the topic itself, because this is about, or this is regarding an ongoing situation, an ongoing pandemic situation. And from this we can propose implications, like local governments can utilize them, or many implications. So that's what. So if we take this one as an example, the implications will tell us where will the findings of this study have application in the outside world. So that's what we mean by the implications part.
Yeah, I think it was very clear from the very beginning. So I understood what
Exactly.
was missing.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tanya. That
Yeah.
was nice.
Great.
Thank you.
So, well done, Tanya. So,
Thank
who would be next? We have Akash here, Chetana, and Farsana. Okay, Sati Jyoti. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I missed one name. So, if we go by our alphabetical order, we will be, going to Akash now. Akash, can you respond in the chat box, or
Yes, sir.
yeah? Okay. Are you ready to present?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. Fine. Fine.
Just a second, sir. I'm sharing my screen.
That's okay. That's okay.
So, can everybody see?
Yes. 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 Yeah. Visible.
Okay. My topic is cultural beliefs, ethical values, integrity, and personal traits among Indian organization employees, showing counterproductive work behavior. It's a correlation study. So this is what I propose. I've been working in my department on this topic for about 1.5 year. So pretty much this was my proposal, and I'm still proposing it to every dissertation review committee conducted every semester. So for the next semester, I'm preparing this one. So the abstract is about the organization having incredible interest in controlling CWB, as we call it in short, counterproductive work behavior, to increase overall productivity and profitability of the organization. Yeah, the end goal is to lessen the measure of counterproductivity among representatives, the employees. Uh, they have to go through all kinds of integrity tests, uh, which was used previously for the past 60 years. But now, moving on, but now the types of tests and types of interviews that are being used for recruiting employees have changed, and the new tests require them to fill up personality-based integrity tests and other cultural belief and ethical values of individual, so that they can actually assess whether their personal values are conflicting or are um, uh, in accordance with the organization values. So my abstract was this. The keywords are given. So next is the introduction. Counterproductive work behavior as a definition alludes to deliberate conduct that damages the prosperity of the association. Okay, so harming an association's property, withdrawal, tattling, whining, and other behaviors like harassment, all these are counterproductive work behaviors. So even coming late and going early is also kind of counterproductive work behavior. So organizations do not appreciate these kinds of behavior, and they want to check it before they are recruiting, and even when the employees are doing during their tenure. So the first is I'm going to compare it with culture. As we see, the culture beliefs of a person may assume a significant part in the event of CWB. culture additionally impacts the space of standardizing conduct, uh, characterizes parts of people in social design and recommends managing standards and qualities in one's day-to-day lives. So you can see culture can be helpful and even can be deteriorating. The culture, according to the individual culture, they may be very much normal for that culture, but in an organization, that culture values won't be suitable. So this is one of the variable I'm going to check. The other is ethical values. Ethical values, in a simple sense, implies to moral standard of the person. Okay, so the moral standard of the person are going to be compared with the organization's values. Whether sometimes the organization asks the person to do something, but his moral values do not tell him to do that. Yeah, that it's not a moral war whether he's right or wrong, but according to the organization, they don't want employees that have that kind of work ethics and moral standards. So that is also one factor we are going to check. The third one is the personal integrity. Integrity part is very much common in organizational psychology. We check for integrity. We have been checking for integrity for the last 60 years. So integrity is one part. This
Uh,
belongs to.
sorry to interrupt, Akash, but I think we can,
Okay,
speed up a little
skip
bit.
that.
Uh,
Okay,
yeah. Not to skip. You can just describe all the slides. In single sentences, because we are more like going trying to see the structure and the things, and
okay,
because we
sir.
are not evaluating it as such. You can make it faster.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
After integrity, we are also checking for personality. Uh, this is all the factors we are going to check. The research problem and the need for research I'm going to, in four short points, I'm going to tell you. The extensive research has been done on counterproductive work behavior for from 1990s, and the counterproductive work behavior have been found to be better related to personality and integrity. But the other factors, cultural values, cultural beliefs, ethical values, these have to be checked still. And in India, these kinds of tests and these kinds of research have not been conducted on a very large scale. So because we have to check for those in a better workplace environment, we have to go for these tests and these types of research. Uh, and these of Indian employees, we have to check for that, and all of this research in one correlation study or a meta-analysis, these have to be checked yet. So that is why there is a need for research. The statement of the problem is primary aim was to understand the relation between cultural value, beliefs, ethical values, integrity, organization culture, and personality traits among employees, showing CWB. The objectives are we are going to check the relation between CWB and personality, and we are also going to see the difference whether those who show counterproductive and those who do not show counterproductive. And also, we are going to see it of counterproductive work behavior of different groups of employees, like based on gender, educational level, department, organizational sector. That we are also going to check cultural beliefs and the relation between cultural beliefs, ethical values, and integrity with counterproductive behavior of employees. And also, we are going to check the organizational culture. The hypothesis is I have I have made 25 hypotheses, but out of that, only four we are going to discuss. The hypothesis in hypothesis there's in a null hypothesis there will be no significant relation or difference between the number of employees who are showing counterproductive and who are not showing, and there is no significant difference between the number of employees who have low scores on cultural belief, integrity, ethical values, and those who have high scores. The review of literature, I've collected five of every variable involved. So for every variable involved, I've shown the latest one, 2021 or 2019. So the I have not added the names as such, but I've added the topic. Um, the main takeaway from these type of research is the first one is on cultural values. So the harmony act as a moral inhibitor for employee to engage in CPTP. So sometimes morals or ethical values, cultural beliefs are good for the organization, and sometimes it inhibits the productivity. Also, relationship between work integrity or ethical or integrity means that when employees' organization commitment would be improved, factors such as personality, especially integrity, could be taken into account. So these are the major takeaways, and on the steps on these steps, we can go for a research um, into collecting all these variables and weaving in them, them into one. The methodology consists of the rationale or the need. Octopus will be used for conducting an overall survey which includes integrity, ethical values. So there is a test which is called Octopus, which surveys the employees and the organization as whole. It makes a profile of it. So Octopus culture and personality profile of all employees of an organization help us in giving proper training to the employees for maintaining a healthy environment. It also helps in dealing with various problems of ethics, integrity, and different cultural beliefs that exist within an organization. The research design, it is a correlational research design involving one-time measurement of variables. The correlational research is one which is a relation between independently obtained measure of variable and in the absence of manipulation of variable. So qualitative and quantitative assessment will be made. Talking about the variables, independent variable is counterproductive work behavior, gender, and educational level. The dependent variable would be cultural belief, ethical values, integrity, and personality, and also organization culture. Sampling would be from age range 20 to 60 years, and purpose of sampling would be used. Sample size is estimated to be 500. Let's see how much I can get and how many people do consent for this test. So 500, out of which there's 250 males and 250 females. Inclusion criteria would be those who have completed graduation and using mobile phones, and individual scoring moderate to extreme level on CWB scale. A control group who gave their consent and use scoring low CWB scores. Exclusion criteria would be who are not giving any consent or who might neglect to grasp the understanding or having any mental or physical problems. For an experimental group, the exclusion criteria would be interior scoring 0 to 9 levels, low levels of uh, scores in CWB scale. The tools used for every variable is different. Uh, the first one is CWB checklist. These are the most popular. CWB checklist by Spectre 2006. It has 45 items. Also, there are checklists uh, which have smaller items in the updated version. But I'm going to consider all the items. It's a 5-point Likert scale from not agree to extremely agree, and cultural values too by Triandus and Gilfan, and integrity too. All the validity and reliability have been given. Integrity tools by Bennett and Robinson. Sports ethical value survey based on sports theory. It's a 57 item questionnaire, and personality tool called BFI, Big Factor Inventory, by John and Schwartz. This is an updated version of the whole history. The results and discussion, something has to be assumed. So I assume that alternate hypothesis will be accepted. Uh, so, so out of that, the main point of the innovation driving towards development of the integrity model was to assess the impact of segment factors, including age and well-being, the educational and the gender factor, and the social attractive quality, good values on the integrity scale. Results showed no distinction with respect to sexual orientation and education, which may propose integrity being a characteristic like variable, not impacted by the degree of instruction or occupation, which was controlled for gender. Second point was to assess impact of integrity on moral, uh, withdrawal system, and business related of foreign cultural deceptive practices. So these kinds of results and discussion were made if the employees' individual traits were measured. The third point of the examination was to create a model giving elements upgrading or impeding integrity. Simultaneously, this model was expected to catch practices that are straightforwardly affected by trustworthiness or honesty. The limitations were the sample size. Let's say it was small for like generalizing for all organization and employees. And a portion of instruments were socially very sensitive. So cultural values and all these in country like India may not be a very good scale like for the organization it is good, but not for the people. There's absence of instrument that would survey profound quality or integrity in the considered culture. And subsequently, the changeability of the testing techniques were restricted. So I have to in future make Google Forms if the pandemic doesn't go away. So I've used the model of Hexago and Octopus and BFI factor analysis. So there may be other models too. People may argue with me, better models, but I have still considered the Hexago the most popular model. The implications, as I thought, was like one of the qualities of the investigation was consideration of all these factors into one. So that is which gave various parts of data in regard to profound quality and honesty, trustworthiness of the overall working documents. And the field of study itself with considerably new viewpoints. So this research would like open new frontiers for even Indian organization. They could use these kinds of tests for recruitment, employment instead of interviews. And people do get rejected in interviews just because of something they did in the past, some criminal FIR. So in that kind of organization recruitment would be like. What they think of the past and these kinds of new online available employment techniques would pave the way for more employment and rather more justifiable employment. The conclusion, as we see, given the asset and significance of integrity tests along with their excessive cost, their examination likewise assessed different variables that might be applied during the integrity evaluation measure. Results showed that explicit character personality traits, together with social allure, may give slant upsides of integrity. So these were my references. I've added only the new references, not the old one. But the old ones are also very good because the founding fathers of all these beliefs, cultural beliefs, and the ethical values were in the 1990s. Thank you so much. So, thank you, sir.
Yeah. I suppose this is something that you have been working on, or a topic which you are, familiar with, right?
Yes, sir, this is my PhD topic. So I've been working for the
Yeah,
past.
exactly. So definitely. So it's always difficult to make it short when we are talking about something that we don't know very much about.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Again, so when you present this to a fresh a committee, there could be some some points of discussion. For example, in APA's publication manual 6 and 7, uh, they have requested people to not include terms that that can be understood by the title itself. For example, the terms like a study of or an experimental study, and by going by API's recommendations, we can omit the correlation study part also from the title. Even then, it won't
Yes, sir.
change much of meaning from the title. So so that can be, but I don't think most of the people who examine our proposals would be asking about us about APA formats. But if if you send this to an APA journal, a reviewer will definitely point this out. Like a correlational study part can also be so
Yes,
uh,
sir.
a bit of an editing can always help even our titles. That's one thing that I notice at first. Then there is about the tense thing. Since when we are presenting something as a proposal, throughout the proposal the tense should be future tense. But we saw that somewhere it was past tense. It is
Yes,
something that has to be
because
noted.
we have conducted the study. That's why
Yeah,
past
yeah,
tense.
that happens. So. And you know. Uh, these things, the tense, the title, those things, are scrutinized at the initial level when we send a proposal for something. That can be something, and it's not, so these responses are not to, individually to Akash, it's just part of our discussion. So when we send a proposal, these things, our punctuations, the silly, mistakes that we make, these things usually catch the eyes of the people who are, evaluating them. So, better be careful, or better go through one more round of editing, even, before sending something, for evaluation.
Yes,
And yeah. So, and when framing the hypothesis, also, I think some of the wordings could be changed somewhat. For example, the term number of employees. So the problem with the phrase of number of employees can give an impression that you are comparing numbers also. In fact, we will
yes,
be comparing, the counterproductive work behavior and uh, some other variables. So who have high scores on cultural beliefs, on cultural skill. Yeah. So if we are not comparing numbers, we can omit those terms. So uh, one
yes.
more round of editing could help the hypothesis be more close to mathematical. I'm happy that none of us have used the mathematical formats for hypothesis. That's a good thing. But we can always try to be as close as to the mathematical. So if we consider this to be, if we format, if we convert these hypotheses into mathematical forms, these could be considered as terms in the mathematical equation, right?
So I will
Number of
just
employees
remove
could
this.
be, yeah. So that kind of an editing could help the hypothesis, to be more crisp and short, and losing nothing by way of meaning. And uh, when we list more dependent variables than independent variables, there could be a regulation question about that also, which we have to be. So we can always use the significance portion of the study and the literature review portion to justify our choice of independent variables and dependent variables. There is no rule that you should have more independent variables and less number of dependent variables, but when that is a practice, somebody can easily ask this question, why are you having this number of independent variables and more number of dependent variables. So it's always good to anticipate that question when we present this the proposal to someone. And again, another point of discussion that can happen when we discuss this specific proposal is the usage of control and experimental groups when we have claimed that we are doing a correlational study. So this would be asked just to just check our understanding of these terms. Whether we understand the terms control groups and experimental groups, and somebody may just raise this kind of an objection, like you have since you have mentioned a correlational design, why are you using control and experimental groups? So for that, we may need to have some answers ready for that. Why we have uh, you know taken control and an experimental group, and why would they fit into our correlational model? Because by conventional wisdom, an experimental group and a control group happen in an experimental or a quasi-experimental study.
Yes,
And also, I think this question also will come out about the number of males and females in the group. If you are using a correlational design, which is a snapshot, which is kind of taking a snapshot, how would you ensure 250 males and 250 females if you are not assigning them into groups and all? So these can all be the questions. And by the last 2 or 3 presentations, we it is always clear that most of the questions the core questions will always be from the methods or the methodology part of our study, right from the research design choice up to our uh, statistical methods. Most of the questions will be centered around these topics: the samples, the sampling design that we use, the terms, exact the words, some of the words that we use in the section. Most of the questions will center around these topics. Anyway, as we said, this is something you have been working on, so there is not much to point out in the presentation. Well done, Akash.
No, sir,
Thanks.
I'm still working on it. It's
Oh,
still
right, right, right.
progressing.
Yeah, okay. Right, right, right. All the best.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
So yeah, you can stop sharing. Okay, so after Akash, if yeah, I think Chetna has an issue, and Chetna is not able to present, I believe. Who's next? I see Fasana. I see Mukti. Why am
Sir,
I?
shall
Yeah.
I?
Yes. 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 Sorry. Akash, your mic is still on.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah.
Sir, is my screen visible?
It's coming. Yes, it's now visible.
Okay. So my title is Effectiveness of Acceptance and Commitment Therapy on Rejection Sensitivity Among Young Adults. My keywords are rejection sensitivity, acceptance commitment therapy, and young adults. Introduction, background and context. Introduction, experience of rejection by others belongs to everyone's life. Probably no worse feeling than that. So it's lead to primarily negative feelings like sadness, anger, then frustration aroused due to rejection may create so many domestic violence, family issues. So I choose the word, the variable rejection here, and the rejection sensitivity trait is checking here. My research question is acceptance commitment therapy effective in reducing rejection sensitivity of young adults? I have given only one objective and the corresponding hypothesis, the same one. So that is, there is no significant difference in rejection sensitivity among young adults who have participated in acceptance commitment therapy and who have not participated in acceptance commitment therapy. Need and significance of the study: a compassionate therapy can help individuals who feel rejected learn to deal with perceived or real rejection, to build social skills that may help them to connect more easily with others. So this is my significance. I just mentioned only one point. Then the literature reviews corresponding to that topic. Mainly the rejection sensitivity is done by Downey. So her studies are mentioned here. She has done the study on romantic relationship and rejection sensitivity. Then Bungret et al. Conducted a study on rejection sensitivity with the symptoms of borderline personality disorder. Then Graciam Umila study on rejection sensitivity among adolescents. Because here the cause and effect relationship between design, because here there are so many chances of affect. So he not true experiment, quasi experiment selected. Then my variables and its operational definitions. Rejection sensitivity. In present study, rejection sensitivity means emotional sensitivity and perception that young adults experiencing due to previous rejection or criticism faced in their life. And the symptoms they are showing may be aggression, impulsivity, isolation, social withdrawal, or even self-harm. Then acceptance and commitment therapy in present study means psychotherapeutic intervention which invites people to open
I'm
up
sorry,
their
Fasana.
unpleasant feeling.
I think only
Hello.
is it for me only? I'm seeing the literature review research background slide even now. Is it so for all of us? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Now method is coming. Yeah. Right.
Maybe my network is slow. That's why.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Even your voice is breaking. Okay. Okay. Try. Try. We'll see. We'll see.
Then Young adults means those who are between age group of 18 to 30. Then setting and participant, both male and female, unemployed and relationship failure. People who have relationship failure are selected, like the participants. Then sample size 60, 30 control group and 30 experimental group. The sampling method I have chosen is purposive sampling. Then the tool using here is rejection sensitivity questionnaire. And to consider, using some information posters using the same questionnaire, then check the difference in the post-test and pre-test and post-test, both in control group and experimental group. Then data analysis will be using through t-test and ANOVA. Then anticipated result and discussion. I anticipate that ACT is effective in normalizing rejection sensitivity who experienced rejection sensitivity more than the mean of the total population. Then implication, improve confidence of those who repeatedly fail in exams and improve the relationship handling skills of young adults. Then reference, just like a APA format, and it's a journal reference. And that's all. It's my proposal. Thank you, sir.
Okay. That was again very well constructed proposal, Prasanna.
Okay.
Can we see the first slide if you're able to?
Okay.
Can we go to the first one? No, the title thing. Yeah, right. Effectiveness of acceptance and commitment therapy on rejection sensitivity among young adults. Yep. So one thing is, the number of experimental studies on psychotherapy, coming out from India are very less, and this is a general note. This would be a very, it would be very nice to see such studies coming out if they happen. That's one thing. So regarding the research question, I think it can be made better because at present the research question almost looks like a yes or no question. So there can be ways in which you can try and make it more open. There is nothing wrong in having a yes or no research question. Such questions are always used, but when we are leaning toward the science side or the experimental side, it is always good to improve it and make it into a more structured. So you can use either the PICO framework or the PEO framework. Since you are using interventions, it is possible also. So you can use either the PICO framework or the PEO framework or the finer framework to better the research question. So that's one thing that I thought. And the usage of t-tests, a paired sample t-test for even though this is not okay, I won't be asking questions. That is not the right platform to do that. So the issue with using a paired sample t-test for a pre-post test with two groups is that it can increase the sensitivity to errors, the type 1 errors, because each time if we are using maybe you can just visualize this. We do a paired comparison of the control group and also of the experimental group, and then again at some point if you are doing a comparison between these two groups, all these are multiple t-tests, right? So these multiple t-tests will increase the sensitivity to errors in our study, and for that reason, for such kind of a study, we sometimes recommend a factorial design with an ANOVA. There are many variations of ANOVA. So some variation of ANOVA can be a better better tool than a t-test. Status can be used for other demographic variables or something in our study, but some variation of an ANOVA will be the better tool for such a study. So that can that question can be raised. So what would be the what would happen with when we use the t-test for this thing. uh, Other than that, when you propose a quasi experimental study, uh,
Hmm.
have you used the word quasi-experimental? I think
Yes.
yes. Yeah. Yeah. So when you propose a quasi-experimental study, uh, the questions will again, you'll be a number of questions will be coming to the selection of variables and the conduct of the study,
Hmm.
and the methods that we'll be using for the normality and the homogeneity or the heterogeneity of the participants, those kind of things. So we have to be ready with the answers for that,
Hmm.
because psychology is a science that is that sits on the brink of being called a pseudoscience as well. And whenever we propose something on the quasi experiment or the experimental side, questions can be expected on those areas. uh,
Hmm.
our selection and also the ethical concerns, which would be the ethical guidelines that we will be following, and also these kind of questions can arise. Otherwise, I don't find much to point out in the presentation. It's somewhat well done, even though we are given the paucity of time. We can understand the paucity of time and the constraints that we have when you know writing such a proposal. Can we see the next one, the next slide after this? Yeah, okay. Anticipate results and discussion. Fine, fine. Yeah, we have written the implications as well. Okay. So when if or when you write this thing into a proposal, be
Hmm.
extra careful to devote a lot of time to frame the research question, and then to the method section. Especially regarding the conduct and the data collection, the conduct and the randomization and those things, because if we have a control and experimental group, there will be question about the randomization and all. So those things have to be very well spelled out, and you can look for some international guidelines on the randomization and the ethical considerations with regard to quasi experimental design. Those have to be invariably mentioned if you are using a quasi experimental design. Even though that's not part of the template that we are discussing, but if you are, in general, if you are proposing a quasi experimental design, there will be questions on the ethical, considerations, and for that you have to mention some ethical framework, the Helsinki framework, or or any of the ethical frameworks which will be used to ensure that our study is less biased. Even you can even go through the Prisma guidelines for reporting of meta-analysis and systematic reviews, so that we can understand what are the factors that reviewers use when they review when they consider our study for a literature for a systematic review. What are the risks of bias that can be present in experimental and quasi-experimental designs. So those will give you an edge when discussing the proposal. This kind of a quasi-experimental proposal. That's it. I think otherwise it's a well constructed one.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Now, who's next? I see Mukti, Satyajyoti. Um, so if anyone can come forward. So far we have had not to call anyone to present. So anyone can come forward and start the presentation.
Good evening, sir. This is
Yeah.
Mukti.
Yeah. Okay, Mukti.
I'm sorry, I could not prepare the presentation, but I do have a few questions. If the other participant, Satya Jyoti, does not, if okay with it, then maybe I can ask those questions, or she can present, or he can present first, and then I can ask my questions.
Okay, so we are waiting for Satyajyoti's response. Satyajyoti, can you hear us? Well, it seems something's wrong from that end.
So can I continue?
Oh yes, yes, yeah, yeah.
All right. So I have so I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I could not really could not find any time to prepare the PPT, but I have applied to IIT twice and I've cleared the written examination. But when it comes to the interview part, I do realize that my research proposal is not very strong. So I learned from my mistakes, and the few questions I have is that how do we decide the sample size, sir? There is some formula or something like that. Is there a way to learn that, or we just go by the thumb rule that for quantitative we take 200 people and for qualitative we take a sample size of 30 or 40? How do we come to that conclusion?
Okay. Now, is which IIT did you apply? No,
IIT
just have
Bombay.
yeah, IIT Bombay, right? Uh, my first PhD proposal was to IIT Kanpur,
Hmm.
and yeah, needless to say, I was also not selected.
Hmm.
Uh, Now, so I've typed a paper uh, you know in the
Yes,
chat
yes,
box.
yes.
Yeah,
I
Cressy
just
and
saw that.
Morgan.
Yes.
Yeah, so Cressy and Morgan. Uh, See, this is kind of a funny question. No, 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 a funny situation. Like in social sciences, where replication is the norm, sample
Yes.
sizes actually do not matter much. But the question of sample size is used to assess our understanding of the concepts. That's it. So
Hmm.
that's one thing. So we have to have, as we already said, no, we have to anticipate some of these questions and be ready with
Hmm.
the answers.
Yes.
So according to Cressy and Morgan's methodology, they have even given the equations and all in this paper itself. Uh,
Hmm.
for any finite population
Hmm.
you can use and by the maximum some a sample size of somewhat about 360 or 340 or 360 will be enough to
Hmm.
cover almost any population. Again, this also depends on the variables also. For example, if you are doing a statewide study on the prevalence of some kind of a mental disorder or or
Hmm.
or a disease or something,
Hmm.
then the sample size has to be bigger. So it partially, it partially is related to the question being studied. But again, the thumb rules, would go to, would be like to go with the recommendations of Cressy or Morgan, or you can use this title of this paper in a website like Connected Papers,
Hmm.
where you can find more such studies which are corresponding to or which are related to this, and more, maybe some recent recommendations on sampling size selection and all, which can also be referred. And uh, and if you are you see, if you're proposing a study which is more on the public health side or the epidemiology side or something that has to do with mental disorders and all, then you have to be a little bit more careful, and you have to use some reference from the epidemiology or the public health research area to decide on the sample size. But for most questions that we come across in social sciences, we can depend on Cressy and Morgan for the sample size estimation. So that's
Okay.
yeah, that's if you want a thumb rule, or the easiest answer is to go with references like Cressy and Morgan for sample sizes.
Okay. Sir, and one more thing, like I had proposed a study on influence of emotions, negative and positive emotions on the prospective memory.
Mm-hmm.
it was a cognitive psychology question, a research, and then it was a experimental research. So for experimental research also, do we go with the sample size of 385 people because it's a quantitative research? Because that would be too much. मतलब कैसे how will it be possible to have 385 people call in the lab and perform the various cognitive that activities that we have planned?
Yeah. Uh, there's no sample size requirement for experimental designs, because you know inside in an experimental design we are looking at people being similar inside our experiment. So just as we were discussing for the previous presentation, uh, in an experimental or even a quasi experimental design, the question will be about the homogeneity or heterogeneity of the sample. So you have to ensure that the people who are chosen for the experimental or the quasi experimental study are similar within themselves, in as many respects as possible. So if you are going for young adults, they should all be very, very close to each other in their ages. The range of age
So
has to be
keeping the
as low as
subject
possible.
related is constant.
Yes, yes, yes.
So
Not
your
about the
voice is
number.
not audible. Just
Oh, uh,
yes, now it is. Now it is.
yeah, okay.
So we keep the
So
subject related variables constant.
exactly, exactly, yes. Sample sizes matter more when we are going for something that can be generalized from taking a sample from a population, and this happens in mostly with respect to descriptive studies or surveys or correlation studies,
Okay.
or even timeline studies, not with experimental or quasi experimental ones.
Yes. And so you
Yeah,
have applied for IIT too, so you know that survey studies are not something that they really appreciate. So I don't think
yeah,
they
right,
want
right, yeah.
something interdisciplinary and wherein there are multiple stages. You can explore 2, 3 questions through your PhD research. That is what they prefer.
Exactly. So, so if when preparing for IIT interviews, it is
Hmm.
always also good to go through the advanced analysis. So what you can do is you can follow some of the professors in if you're targeted from as an institution, an
Hmm.
IIT or any institution. It's
Hmm.
always good to go through the profile of the professors in the department,
I
and
did that.
see where they have published and
Hmm.
what are the areas in which they have been publishing.
Hmm.
So that should also give you an idea on what should be the keywords that you have to include in the proposal, and this can also give you an idea about the questions that will probably likely arise in the interviews too.
Yes, yes, yes. Also, sir, about true randomization, is it really ever possible? Because you never have the entire data about the population. We are mostly doing quota sampling or we are mostly doing stratified sampling. मतलब
Yeah.
random sampling is, in true sense, very difficult to achieve.
Yeah. In social sciences, randomization is kind of it's the ideal position, and
Hmm.
we always strive to get as close to this ideal position, and
Hmm.
it's yeah, and that's why we always need uh replications. So
Hmm.
in physics or chemistry you don't need replication
Hmm.
to confirm something. So if something is found, something regarding quasars or photons is found in a lab in Switzerland, that applies to any place on earth, almost any
Hmm.
place on earth where not in the quantum area, of course, but it is almost universally accepted, but this thing does not apply to social sciences. So but again, you need to, yeah, so you need to know the terminology or the techniques that we use to reduce bias. Uh, uh, you know, uh, you know how to assess the homogeneity and heterogeneity of the sample. Those things are the tools that help us to go as close to randomization as possible. So that's kind of a process, not an end goal in social science at least.
Okay, okay, I'll keep that in mind. I just have one last question, sir. In cognitive sciences, they
Yeah.
are taught in masters unless somebody has done, I think, a master's in MSc in cognitive sciences from either Allahabad, Lucknow, or Hyderabad. I think University of Hyderabad is very good at that. Most of the universities do not teach you all of those statistical analysis techniques of statistical analysis. Is there any book wherein we can learn from easily these rotational methods and all of those things, or any website, or do you know about any programs that teach?
I may not be an expert in this area, but I would recommend two places that I would recommend is one is Coursera and the other one is NPTEL. The
Hmm.
Swayam courses. These
Hmm.
both are MOOC platforms. Uh, yeah. So okay.
Okay.
Okay, Fasana has asked something in the chat box. I will read and reply. So one is NPTEL or the Swayam platform, where most of the courses are given by faculty from IITs and mostly from IITs and IIMs and all. That's
Hmm.
one place. And another place that I would recommend is Coursera. So if you do courses on Coursera, there you can find many other resources also. In the readings and all, they provide most of the courses, they provide us with resources, reading materials and resources, articles, books, all those will be given as part of the course material also. In Coursera, you don't need to pay unless you want to get a certificate. If you you can go through the course, you can complete the course, and after completing the course, there will be assignments and all. And once you complete the course, you can choose to pay to get a certificate, or you can just leave it at that. Coursera would be a very good place to start studying these analysis and all. Many universities, Johns Hopkins University, Amsterdam University, they all have courses. Just like our diplomas or certificate courses, where you can subscribe to individual courses, and they will be, once you complete 4 or 5, which are a bundle, you can get a certificate for that, the larger course also. That would be a good place to start, I believe.
Thank you so much, sir. I was really lost about this thing after my last interview, but now I have some clarity.
Yeah, it happens to all of us, even the best of us. And you
Because
can
they
always
did
use.
not, they do not give any feedback about it. They just straight away reject it, and they just say your methodology is not very strong, and you don't know where am I lacking, what is the actual problem.
Yes, 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 that can happen. This is something that bugs out the Indian academia. Something that we cannot do much about, at least right now. So
Hmm.
again, ResearchGate can also be a very good source to
Hmm.
ask your specific doubts, or so
Hmm.
even very specific questions can be raised on ResearchGate, and you
Hmm.
can get answers to almost in any question on research methodology, and even statistics or ResearchGate as well.
Okay, I'll
Yeah.
keep that in mind. Thank you so much.
Yeah, all the best. So I think we, some more people have joined. I see. Okay, Chetra has already said. So okay, I see Anthony. I see Estelle.
Yes, sir.
If anybody has a
Yes, sir.
presentation.
Sorry to interrupt, sir. Can I present? I have this small no, a presentation.
Yeah,
This is
yeah, yeah. You
just
can.
simple
Please, please.
proposal. So I had this, but I couldn't organize this because of my illness. But I'll try to no, present it. Is it okay?
Yeah,
Do
yeah,
we have the
yeah.
time?
Everything goes. Everything goes. Even if somebody has not prepared anything on paper, you can just try to even orally present. Anything goes here. Please
Yeah.
do.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I'll just present my screen. Okay, this is about a comparative study of information overload on decision making among rural and urban college students. I have this abstract, and the keywords in this abstract are information, education, information age. Okay, this is the background or the context of this proposal. I have explained, defined information overload and decision making. And further, the research question which I have found is Does information overload affect decision-making ability of the college-going students, thereby affecting their academic performance in the long run? The objectives, I have set two objectives here to assess the impact of information overload among rural and urban students. The second one, to investigate influence of information overload on decision-making ability. The need and the significance of the study include: number one, little research has attempted to link decision maker experience and background to information overload. So the second one, digital learning has increased the accessibility to information anywhere, anytime. Therefore, it is important to understand the impact of the same on the learners. So further, so I could get these two literatures on this study on the topic. The methodology or the method. The present study aims to investigate impact of information overload among rural and urban college students with regard to a psychological variable, namely decision making and other demographic factors such as age, gender, education stream, and socioeconomic status. Problem: to assess the impact of information overload on decision-making ability among rural and urban college students. Hypothesis, I have said three hypotheses. One, there is a significant difference between rural and urban college students with regard to information overload experience. There is a significant difference between the rural and urban college students on their decision-making ability. There is a significant gender difference in information overload and decision-making. The sample, it consists of 400 rural and urban postgraduate students of arts, commerce, and science streams. Convenient sampling will be used to collect data. Age range of the sample is between 21 to 25. The sample is drawn from the geographical area of rural and urban part of Mysore city in Karnataka state, India. Sample criteria, inclusion criteria, students having knowledge and understanding of English language, for the purpose of collecting data, as I intend to use verbal tool for this purpose. Samples from rural and urban Mysore. College students who are aged approximately between 21 to 25 years and students studying in government and private colleges. Exclusion criteria include students not willing to participate. The study has excluded individuals who were below or above the age range. The study has excluded UG students, undergraduate students. It also excludes the illiterate population. Further, the variables include independent variables, rural college students and urban college students. Dependent variables, information overload and decision making. Tools, socio-demographic profile data sheet to collect the socio-demographic details of the participant. Information overload scale, it has 15 item. It is a 15 item scale which measures the construct of information overload, covering the degree to which the excessive information. This is about the details about the scale. Statistical analysis, t-test will be used to find significant differences among groups. Descriptive statistics will be used to verify the hypothesis. I'm not quite sure about this. This is something which I came up while going through the statistical tools that can be used for this purpose. Implications of the study include the findings would help in understanding the impact of information overload on decision-making capacity among college students and its influence on psychological well-being in particular. Further analysis could be used to minimize the adverse effects of information overloading situation or better handling of the same. This is something which I couldn't come up with, so I have just left it like this. The references. Yeah, so this is it, sir. So I think you can provide your feedback.
Oh yes, Chetana, we can hear that you are in some discomfort.
Yes, I'm having cough because of this fever and cough. So
Yeah.
I couldn't.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Anyway, this is not a bad. You did not have hesitated so much to present this because this is not a bad proposal by any means. But yeah, obviously there are areas that can be that can be better. So
Yes.
So we are going with the title itself. According to the APA, see the APA Style Manual Edition 7. It's not freely available on the internet, but most of the contents of APA manual are available on other websites, also on the APA Style website itself. So it's always good to go through them. They have given almost every single detail about writing manuscripts, including titles, the usage of languages, inclusive languages, and all these things. So uh, for this title of ours, even if we don't use the first two or three words, a comparative study of, even if they are removed from the title, it does not actually take away anything from the title, right?
Okay.
because
Okay, sir.
because since we have written rural and urban college students, it can be understood that this is most probably a comparative study. So the title can be uh, made even better by removing those words, which need not be there. So there is nothing wrong in using a comparative study thing, and this has been the practice. If you go through PhD theses and even MPhil dissertations or PG dissertations, all of us have been using this format for using our titles. But in the age of internet, it is always good to, because even when we use whenever we use such words, they will add to the noise. When somebody is going to actually looking for studies or searching the internet, these can when all the people use too many words, it can make much of noise, and that's one reason why they have asked us to use it. So that's one thing we can improve the title somewhat.
Sure.
And the research question itself can be framed you know now in the existing form. The research question can be simplified, and then we can add more things to this research question. So it can be trimmed first. In existing format, the research question can be trimmed, and then we can add some things to the research question. So that it is more it is more conducive to the PICO framework that we discussed in the last session.
Yes.
PACOT framework.
Yes.
So that can be done.
Yes.
And regarding the variables, the independent variables specifically, that has to be reconsidered. Whether we have to use the same as independent, because what we have written here is not a variable but a group of the population or group of the sample.
Yes. Yeah, I understand.
So yes, so if you think about it once, it is clear, right?
Yes.
So
I got
yeah,
it.
right. So
Right.
that's
Okay.
one thing. And yes, descriptive statistics are not usually used to test hypothesis. Uh, they can be done when the question is about the numbers and all, like the question that we had in uh, Akash's proposal. There was something like a number of students, right? So
Right.
if we are comparing something like number of students, etc., we can use descriptive statistics. Otherwise, we mostly use inferential statistics.
Okay.
So the difference is, like, descriptive is what we can see right away, and inferential is what we draw from what we see.
Yes.
So averages, numbers, all these things are maximum, minimum. These things are all descriptive, whereas the other analysis, just like the t-test or the correlation coefficient or regression, these things are the inferential things. We don't see them right away, but we calculate them from the descriptive data. So for most hypotheses, we will need inferential statistics. And yes, for some questions, we may need descriptive statistics, but most of the times we will need inferential statistics too. In fact, the t-test that you have written here is an inferential statistic.
Okay, sir.
Right.
Fine.
Yeah. No, I'm saying again, this is not a bad proposal at all. You did not have hesitated to present it. It's done reasonably well.
Right, but the thing is, like, I couldn't go through the the materials that you had sent because of the heavy
Uh-huh.
work, in the college.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, I wanted to show this is my first proposal, sir, which
Oh, great.
yeah, yeah, which I developed, not very long ago, a couple of months back. But I
Wow.
just wanted to modify this because my first experience with research is just like I just started with research work, so maybe I need some more study with regard to
Definitely. In
development.
that case, this is a very well done thing. Right.
Right.
When I compare with the first proposal that I wrote, after completing my PG,
But it
this
took
is a
a lot
very well
of
done.
time, sir. I took a lot of time actually
Yeah,
because
it
I
does.
had
It
to go
does.
through some of the other proposals also to
Yeah,
prepare
it
this.
does. It always does.
Yes, so I
Yeah.
was little
And
hesitant initially for this reason also, but then like I thought
in
if you can give
yeah,
good output, I mean
yeah,
input about the proposal, it would be helpful for me. I thought so. I just
yeah. Right.
yeah presented.
Good
Yes,
that you presented. Yeah.
thank you, sir. Thank you so
So
much.
yeah. Okay. Fazana, if Fazana is asking about the number of variables, uh, number of studies to be included, or I believe Fasana is asking about the sample size or maybe the variables. Fasana, if it is about number of sample or the sample size, uh, okay, oh, okay. On the number of studies to be included in literature review. Okay, 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 okay. I read it wrong, Fasara. Sorry. Okay, the number of studies. There are no guidelines. There are no guidelines at all. But there can be, institution-wise guidelines on the number of pages for literature review, number of pages for introduction and all. This can happen in institutions, but not. There are no accepted guidelines of that. It is most it's more of a theory thing, how much you are able to uh, how much studies you would need to make a coherent argument, or write a coherent story about your proposed topic. So that should be the guiding criteria. But yeah, always, universities or departments may have their own numbers, like minimum studies within 5 years, or minimum 5 6, but I won't recommend any of those numbers. I don't see the logic of prescribing numbers for studies. uh, yeah, Fasana, you can ask your questions, but I just need to make sure that nobody is waiting with their presentations. If anybody is willing to present, uh, because I see Estelle and I see somebody, so I saw somebody else also. uh, okay, so if anybody from the among the participants, I see Anthony, I see Estelle. uh, yeah, so I think Satyajyoti has already said. Okay, so if Anthony or Estelle, anyone is ready with a presentation, even an oral presentation, that's no issues. Uh, uh, we are okay. Otherwise, we can go with the. Okay, since I don't see responses in the chat box, or through the mic, I just assume that they have no presentations to be done. Okay, so Fasana is asking about number of variables. Hmm. Can you use the mic, Fasana? Yeah, I know that your reception is very low. Can you try?
Sir, I asked two doubts, like
Uh-huh.
guidelines on number of variables to be studied in descriptive studies or in experimental studies. How many
Okay,
variables
okay.
we
So
should
there was
include?
a question there. Yeah. Okay. Guidelines on number of variables to be studied in descriptive studies or experimental studies. Right, right, right. So this issue comes to, so if you take the example of experimental studies, experimentation in psychology is a very slippery area. Because you know the idea of experimentation itself is built upon the control of variables. How much variables you can control, and in an ideal situation, in an experimental condition, or in an experimentation, you would have only two variables, or maybe, if possible, only one variable. If you can visualize the testing of a new medicine. There in an ideal situation to test a medicine, there should only be one variable, and that should be the medicine, or the treatment protocol, or a vaccine. It would be the single variable, and ideally in experimentation we should have only one variable. But in social sciences, even in psychology, even if we do studies inside labs, it is not possible to control all the other variables. There would always be variables which are not part of the study, which we cannot control, uh, which we are unable to recognize. All these categories of variables would be there. So if you go with number of variables for experimentation, it would be suggested that try to limit to two variables, one which can have an effect on the other one, and we will be trying to uh, understand and explain the relationship between these two. So that's with experimentation, and that's why most of the experimentations we do in psychology again fall into the category of quasi experiments, because there are too many variables which are beyond our control. And descriptive studies, I have not, I have never come across guidelines on variables. It again depends upon the question that we have framed. What are the most important variables that you need to look at in order to answer our research question? So that should be our guide. That should be the guiding principle. uh, I'm not aware of any guidelines on the number of variables to be studied in descriptive studies. I may be wrong, but I have never come across such guidelines. The guideline which we can suggest is based on the research question that we frame. What are the variables which are necessary for us to answer or to address the research question that we have formulated? That can be a kind of a thumb rule for the number of variables. And then again, there are institutional guidelines, like in IGNO. In IGNO, it is in IGNO's PGs, it is always suggested that they look for three uh, continuous variables, or three variables which can be measured using standardized scales. So that's a convention in IGNO, and almost everybody, I think, almost everybody follows this convention. And even in departments there can be conventions of having the minimum number of tables needed for a dissertation. Now we just need to understand we can follow the institutional guidelines or the institutional practices, no issues, but we need to be aware that these are not any international guidelines, or these are not international practices. These practices can happen in any institutions. There's nothing wrong in having institutional guidelines, but there are no international or standardized guidelines on these numbers. Whatever we see are probably what your seniors have done, or probably what your professors would prefer. And I would say there's nothing wrong in that, but that is not to be taken as a universal criteria. That's it. I hope I have I've been able to respond to both of those questions. Okay, Akash. My brain is not fast enough to process the presentation and suggest statistical tools for this. uh, you know uh, I can give my email ID here, uh, or we can use we have formed a WhatsApp group. We can either use the WhatsApp group, or you can use the email ID to pitch that question with the necessary with the necessary information to me. Maybe I'll be able to give it after going through it. uh, I have even forgot what you were presenting. I just remember that your presentation was eye catching, because the dark background and the light letters, it was eye catching, and those things are important too, even though they may not be the most important things, but they are important. uh,
So may I ask a question?
Yeah.
Sir, if we take up convenience sampling or non-probability sampling methods, then are they somehow not preferred by the selection board?
Again, I presume that your this question comes from the IIT experience background, right?
Yes.
Uh, yes, yes. This is no, this is no way to categorize or label institutions, but
Hmm.
there are institutional practices
Hmm.
with regard to sampling. So if you look at university departments of psychology and all, you can see that most of the uh, the traditional university departments have started accepting mixed methods as a norm, or
Yes,
even
sir.
qualitative
Actually,
studies. Yeah.
because I studied from Delhi University and
Mm-hmm.
we had a very different practice of how to do research from what
Right. Yeah.
it's there in IIT. So it's a big cultural shift for me also, and I feel very lost when I apply over there.
Exactly. Exactly. There could be professors, there could be senior faculty in IITs also, the social science and humanities departments of IITs also, who may be inclined towards uh, uh, qualitative studies or probability samplings and qualitative studies and all. uh, Probably, I don't know for sure, but I think maybe Professor Ilavati Krishnan from IIT Kanpur, you know uh, you know there are people like that, but IITs are science and technology institutions, and uh, all everything inside the IIT academic space may have this inclination towards scientificity, which is not a bad thing at all.
Hmm.
But uh, yes, if you know your question actually is contingent on the institutions that you are going. Yes, if you are going for if you are trying to get uh, if trying to prepare a proposal for IITs, then it's always good to go with the probability samplings and their associated uh, statistical tools and all. But as you also know, we have to be aware that the world is not stuck at one place. But if these are the practical matters that we have to consider. So since you know that some institutions prefer certain sampling methods and certain statistical analysis and tools, uh, by from a practical side of things, it is good to follow that thing. And maybe once you get inside, you may be able to make a difference. That can happen. But from once you are outside, it is always safer to follow the treaded path, or the beaten path. That's sort of what I would say.
No, no, sir, I am not. I am okay, absolutely okay with it. I'm not a rebel like that. So I'll be fine following the practices. Also, sir, I wanted to ask you one more thing. Especially when it comes to cognitive psychology, I think they are very particular about their methodology being very scientific in nature and very cognitive. I mean,
Yes,
very
yes, yes. And
statistically
yeah,
significant.
yes, if you are looking at topics which fall on the cognitive science side, that's in fact what we call as cognitive psychology may not be a branch of psychology within next few years. See, because most of the topics that come under cognitive psychology or cognitive sciences are being handled by other branches of science as well, including computer science and artificial intelligence and even neurosciences. So it is expected of them to stick to the scientific side, or the scientific method when the topics are on that side. And I would say that's quite natural, because uh, you know cognitive sciences are mostly result oriented. They want results which can be applied to social media, to various areas of life. And for that, uh, you know those research since they are result oriented, and they are looking at results which can be applied anywhere. globally applicable, universally applicable results. And
Hmm.
that's the reason why there is a very strict adherence to the scientific or the positivist side of research, and that's quite understandable too.
So they want that ecological validity of the results should be very high.
Exactly, yes.
Okay. Okay. And apart from IIT, sir, which other institutes do you think are good for PhD, which also provide you with at least some amount of stipend, if not equivalent to IITs?
um I don't know whether I am, I'm qualified to answer this question, because that's not at all my area of expertise. So whatever I say, please take it with a pinch of salt. Do not
Yes.
take it as a, a qualified. Just like what you say in this, stock trading circles, for
Hmm.
information purpose only, not a buying recommendation or a selling recommendation. You
Terms
know,
and conditions
so
applied. Okay.
yeah, right. So all central universities, as far as I understand, all central universities are able to provide fellowships to their PhD scholars,
Hmm.
especially if they have cleared net. Scholarships are pakka,
Hmm.
and uh, I believe almost all universities, the state universities and the central universities, outside the IIT circle, they all admit topics, which are interdisciplinary in nature. And
Hmm.
one institution that I know of is Tata Institute of Social Sciences. Tata Institute, even though they do not, I don't think they have, a very big psychology faculty, but any topic which is of an interdisciplinary nature, with elements of psychology and other social sciences, all those things are, considered favorably there. And the universities like, probably, Ashoka or Aspirants University, all these new age universities, they also consider topics and proposals which are innovative and interdisciplinary in nature. And uh, state universities, I again have to, based on my understanding, which is very limited, state universities are more towards the traditional side of topics. So even if you choose qualitative studies, the topics, if you go with something like, robotics or anything which is interdisciplinary in nature, it is easier to be accepted in non-traditional universities. And in traditional universities, I believe, most more topics that fall specifically into the syllabus of psychology PG or psychology, our academic syllabus are more accepted. That's what I believe. And I don't have much recommendations for specific universities, because I'm not aware of them much.
Hmm. So, but I personally believe that having had the experience of some exposure to IITs also, I believe that if you want to be a very good researcher and if you want to learn research well, you should go for the non-traditional ones because they're ready to explore more in that area. The traditional universities stick with the traditional methods of research, and thereby your horizons are really limited over there.
I would agree and disagree with that, because yes, the the environment inside universities is critical, but again, another critical factor is your own willingness to explore. And uh, even though we all, all of us study to get a job, or to build a career, the purpose of doing a PhD in itself uh, is not to get a PhD itself, or to get it qualified for a job or anything, but this is kind of a qualification process to become a researcher. And becoming a researcher or being a researcher is more, dependent on what we do as a person than what is provided by an institution. but yeah, there can be, ifs and buts, there can be conditions, all these things are there. And I do partially agree to what you said, but in the end, it's a personal endeavor. Research itself is a personal endeavor, and our own ability or our own willingness to be open to new ideas and to experiment new things is as important as any other factor. No, it's not to say that the other factors are not invalid or something, but this is also a major factor. That's what I believe about research.
I think that that's very well said, sir. I'll keep that in mind. Thank you so much for all the guidance that you've given in the last session and today as well. Thank you.
Yeah, it has been a very good experience, having uh, a really reactive or proactive group, to discuss these things. I believe that we have not left anyone behind. Uh, even inside the chat box, I've tried, because I see one or two names who were not able to present. It's always okay. The only concern is that whether I have omitted someone, or whether we have left someone behind. I I I I believe that we have not left anyone behind. We have tried to discuss whatever was presented here, and as I said, even after 1 and almost 2 years of maybe 1.5 years of online workshops and online trainings, I personally am not still comfortable with this online mode of doing things. It has its own advantages, as in a physical program all of you would never have been able to, and we would never have been able to host such a diverse audience for a physical workshop. It would have been too difficult for us. That that being said, I miss the physical presentations and physical discussions. A physical discussion would have added much more value to the whole interaction that we have had, but that's beyond our control. So our scheduled time is coming to an end. As we already said, we will be uh, circulating a feedback form. We request you to give critical feedbacks about the program in the feedback form, and once we get the feedback form, we will be circulating the certificates. Jimson is the executive director of us, and he has been instrumental in doing all those work behind. We are not a very big team or anything, just a bunch of people who are passionate about psychology, social sciences, and research, and about the world that we live in. Most of us, and Asan does not have any full time person working for us. And all of us use our part, our spare time for doing these things. So we don't have a official valedictory ceremony or anything here. I i thank all of you on behalf of us and for being part of this thing. We are open for discussions. We do still do have this WhatsApp group open, and the Ascent email ID or my own personal email ID can be used for discussions. We will try to be to respond to any queries or suggestions that you have, and do not hesitate to give in your suggestions. Even outside of the feedback form, you can always write to us, even suggesting topics and all. And we usually do workshops on research methodology, and right now I have been planning a workshop on free and open source software for data analysis, because we are, as a country, we are or the Indian social sciences itself is kind of addicted to SPSS, which is a proprietary software, and is many of us could be using it in the pirated version also. We are planning uh, a workshop or a training program on free and open source software which can be used for data analysis in social sciences. We will keep you posted or informed about the workshop or the training programs that we are going to consider conduct in the future. So if somebody has something to add, the floor is open. Otherwise, we can wind up. As I said, uh, the feedback form will be reaching you very soon.
No, I just wanted to thank you, sir, for getting us all together and giving us potential insights about what we should be doing hence on, and really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for those kind words, Martin.
Thanks.
So if there are no more additions, no more suggestions, no more queries, we can leave this meeting. Thanks to all. Bye.
Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you, because you were so kind in guiding all of us. And also, I would like to attend the future workshops that you are planning. Kindly let us know, as you said, please let us know about your
We will do. We will do.
workshops, future
Definitely.
workshops
Yeah.
in the WhatsApp group. I hope it remains active, for the updates and all.
Yeah.
Kindly,
Yeah. It will be there.
share.
It will be there. Yeah.
Yes,
We
share
will do.
valuable. Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you so much. It was truly inspiring listening to you from past, 2 workshops, 2 days. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.